After leaving WWE in 2010, Dave Bautista decided that the time was right to start his MMA career. He tried to join Strikeforce, Los Angeles, although the deal eventually fell through when the company was bought out by another promotion. As he bided his time before his first fight, Bautista snagged himself a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and continued to prepare himself to fight in the heavyweight division. He eventually got his wish, signing on to fight Rashid Evans in October 2012. Evans landed back in prison for a probation violation the night before the fight, however, and Bautista instead fought replacement punching bag Vince Lucero. Bautista pummeled Lucero and earned a TKO win in the first round. Known in WWE as Rodney Mac, Rodney trained with his uncle, and former WWE Superstar Junkyard Dog, before signing with ECW in 2000, and then WWE in 2002. After a couple of two-year stints with the company, he got into MMA in 2008 and fought just one time. He at least won the fight, beating the hell out of some guy named Joe Namath, and knocking him out in 21 seconds. Scott "Bam Bam" Bigelow wrestled for pretty much every promotion in existence, and in 1996, while working for ECW, took a one-fight detour to a huge Japan MMA event. He fought against Kimo Leopoldo, getting absolutely annihilated and submitting in the first round. Bigelow later claimed that the fight was fixed and that he was supposed to lose. Before he was fired for unprofessional conduct following an altercation with a WWE employee, Alberto Del Rio was a very decorated member of the professional wrestling world. Before he became a WWE champion, Del Rio earned a reputation in the MMA world as an accomplished submission specialist. After 14 professional fights, he called it quits in 2010 when he signed his contract with WWE. The pinnacle of Nathan Jones' career came in 2003, when he debuted with WWE as The Undertaker's protege, and fought alongside his mentor at WrestleMania. Other than that, the monstrous Jones' wrestling career doesn't bear much distinction. His MMA career was likewise pretty uneventful, as the former strongman fought just one time. It was at the first ever KRS Pride event, and Jones was forced to submit to an Americana from former sumo wrestler Koji Kitao. As a talented wrestler, Bobby Lashley took to MMA after gaining a solid push from both the WWE and TNA. Lashley lived up to his Dominator nickname in his first 5 fights, destroying the likes of Jason Guida, Bob Sapp, and Wes Sims. He faltered in 2 fights, due to a lack of gas tank, but he has shown to be a tough out for anyone. Brock Lesnar was an amazing amateur wrestler, who transitioned to MMA very well. The former WWE champion had a run as the UFC champion, earning the title just 4 fights into his career. He defended the title twice. A list of his victims includes former heavyweight champion Frank Mir, former interim champion Shane Carwin, and former 2-division champion Randy Couture. A hugely accomplished wrestler in Japan, TAKA MICHINOKU also had a surprisingly long run for WWE in the late 1990s, early 2000s, before he returned to his native country. Prior to his big breakthrough in WWE, he fought one time in the Octagon. At an event in Tokyo, he submitted to Kichiro Yamamiya in the first round, in what would prove to be the only MMA bout of Michinoku's career. Known mostly as a mixed martial artist, with over 100 professional fights under his belt, Ikuizumina made his pro wrestling debut in 2010, for the Japanese Inkijinome Federation. He continues to wrestle sporadically, although these days he spends much more time fighting in the octagon than the wrestling ring. Sean O'Hare became part of the WCW invasion into WWE in 2001, and established himself as a regular part of the roster for the better part of the next 3 years. After he left the company, he embarked on an MMA career, whose most noteworthy moment was probably when O'Hare got beaten to hell by Butterbean. Sadly, O'Hare joined the ever-expanding list of wrestlers to suffer an early death when he committed suicide. Daniel Puder's biggest accomplishment in WWE was his victory in the $1 million Tough Enough Challenge, WWE's reality series where wrestling hopefuls vie for a professional contract. While Puder did win the competition and competed on several pay-per-views, he was cut from the company to save money in 2005, and wrestled on the independent circuit until 2011. After WWE, he continued a highly successful MMA career, in which he went undefeated prior to his retirement in 2011. Kazushi Sakuraba's name may not resonate as much in the United States, but in Japan he is regarded as highly successful in both MMA and professional wrestling. He's been able to mix in both vocations since launching his career in the early 1990s, competing in 45 MMA bouts and returning to pro wrestling full-time in 2012. Dan the Beast Severn is one of the most accomplished fighters in the history of MMA, a UFC Hall of Famer who also owns the distinction of being the first fighter to ever be awarded a UFC title belt. He can trace his fighting roots back to college, where he was a highly successful freestyle wrestler. Severn also tried his hand at professional wrestling. He is the only person to hold belts at the same time, in MMA and professional wrestling, and even briefly feuded with UFC rival Ken Shamrock in WWE. UFC Hall of Famer, Ken Shamrock, was successful as a fighter and wrestler. His list of accolades speaks for itself. Shamrock took to WWE in the prime of his fighting career, which may have hurt him as a fighter. Either way, he owns victories over Dan Severn, Baz Rutten, and Masakatsu Funaki. He fought way past his prime, which hurt his record, but he is one of the greatest MMA pioneers of all time. Paulo Cesar Silva, better known as Giant Silva, is exactly that, giant. Standing at 7'2" and tipping the scales at 385 pounds, Silva enjoyed a brief run in WWE, as one of the oddities. He also enjoyed a long career wrestling in Japan with several companies, and during the time he also tried his hand at MMA. It didn't go all that well, as his record shows.